Welcome in, everyone. It is BTB Analytics back with you for college football week 5. We got marquee matchups, we got data, best predictions, all of it. It's going to be a great show. Let's get into it.
Give a damn about a hater when I feel like it. Not today, not today, not today, not tomorrow. Get out my way, please. I'm trying to get paid. Not today, not today.
All right. Down a man, but it doesn't matter. We truck on. The show must go on. Steve might actually join us here in a little bit. We'll see. You got some technical difficulties, but if not, we will take you guys through all the normal good stuff and a few other extras this time around. So a lot of good matchups, like I said, to break down, Seth. Let's just jump in, man. Let's not waste any time. Friday Night Lights again. I like these Friday night matchups. We got Miami.
They've been bangers, haven't they?
They have been good matchups and good games so far. Yeah. Let's well, I don't know about this. I don't know if the trend will hold with this game, but yeah, we got Miami and we got Virginia Tech. Friday Night Lights, baby. Yeah, Seth, this one, the market, from what I've gathered looking at it not too long before we hopped on here, market's been buying Miami. Market has been loving Miami more or less here. So we showed a little bit of value on Virginia Tech here, but want to get your take on this, because what I've digested from this matchup and how I'm thinking about potentially betting into this, like I'm not so sure this isn't going to be just a blowout, absolute slaughter fest.
No, yeah, you're right. You're right. And I mean, let's break down the numbers here, because I was kind of on the same side as you, thinking about this matchup and then seeing the market buy. I think this is as high as 19 now, if I'm not mistaken.
I saw 19 and a half earlier, yeah.
19 and a half. Wow. Okay. I mean, Miami's offense is clicking. Miami's pass offense right now is 4th overall. Rush is number 11 EPA. Their defense is also clicking. They're 10th against the pass and 35th against the rush. Miami's an interesting team. They are very good at throwing the ball, and they know it, and they do it. I mentioned they're the 4th best passing team. They're the 122nd run rate team, meaning they're basically throwing the ball in the top, let's call it top 20 team. So they're throwing the hell out of the ball, and they know to do it because they're killing it throwing the ball. So it's, a little bit of breath of fresh air there. They're kind of just leaning into their strengths, but no doubt they can rush the ball as well. Virginia Tech, a lot of love coming into the season. This is kind of everybody's darling. They had like 80%. They had the most overall returning production. The one thing I wanted to point out in the market always was, remember, returning production is important, but what are you returning? If you're returning a bunch of median, or average players, it doesn't mean you're going to have this great season. And that's kind of what we're seeing so far, about a median performance from Virginia Tech. Offensively, we're looking at the 90th pass offense and the 49th rush offense. And then on defense, 66th against the pass, 78th against the rush. I'm going to be blunt here with you, Kevin. Virginia Tech's only chance to win this game is their points per equal. Right now, they're giving up the 23rd least amount of points per equal at 3.4. So people are driving on them, but when they get to the red zone, they're only making field goals, about 3.4. If they can hold that against Miami, maybe. The other thing that is in the Virginia Tech corner here is, if we look at the weighted defensive EPA, 23rd. So when we look at the kind of plays that correlate with winning a little bit more, they're making more of those plays than not.
Yeah.
But I'm with you here. I wrote down here, you're either going to fade the market or you're fading the model. But you're fading something here, and I'm with you. Miami looks like a powerhouse.
Yeah, I'm not quite with you in the sense of, like, I don't think we should be talking about Virginia Tech can win this game. Like, we gotta only be talking, like,
can they hold on?
Cover.
Yeah. Can they cover that 19 and a half? But market's buying them.
Right. Yeah. You mentioned the points per equal stuff. I was keen in on a couple of some of the data here as well. So look at Miami's not only offensive equal rate over expectation, they are crushing it. Like, it's insane. I don't know what percentile that is. I don't know if you have that handy, but so they are getting to the opponent's 40-yard line or better 50% of the time, 50% more than an average team. Yeah. So, and then similarly to your point on the defensive side, like, they are preventing teams at a pretty significant clip from getting to their own 40-yard line as well. We're in Arizona, so we don't have college team play or college player props. Kind of wish we did, but we don't. And one thing I just kind of digesting the numbers again. If I can get out there like a team total under 17.5 for
For
Virginia
Virginia Tech.
Tech, yeah, I think that would be an interesting player angle here. I'm not so sure they got the firepower. I'm not so sure that they're going to be able to generate. I mean, they're going to be forced constantly into pass situations, I believe, unless some weird haywire shit goes on, you know. And
Yeah.
I just can't see a scenario where they generate more than 3 touchdowns.
Okay,
So
that's fair. That's
yet,
fair.
not yet. It's early in the week still. You know, usually the team game prop stuff kind of materializes later in the week.
Yeah.
So if that's available, I might look to take some action on that.
Okay. She said under 17 and a half
Yeah.
or under 20 and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's crazy. The one thing I do see here, though, is Virginia Tech, they're better rushing than they are passing. And when you're looking at a Miami top 10 passing defense, are they going to try to lean into the rush? And the problem with the rush is, to your point, can limit scoring, but it limits the clock for the other team.
Right.
That's what maybe the model is queuing in on here. To your point, you were talking about the offensive echo rate over expected for Miami. I don't have the percentile, but that's number 2 in the nation. So I mean, we're talking about this team is driving. I mean, to the point, there's the clip. I don't know if you saw their quarterback literally pointing to the gap they're going to run, and then they literally ran that gap. I mean,
I haven't seen that play, but know about that. Yeah, we're gonna go here. Ain't shit you can do about it.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know, Virginia Tech, a lot of love here. They haven't really lived up to it. Our model actually had them favored last week against Rutgers, and obviously Rutgers kind of dominated them. So it could be kind of a sliding hill here for Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
It's got to be. I think I'd fade the model here. I think I'd kind of agree with the market.
Yeah. This 2.5 point move already. I mean, we still got a couple days till kickoff. So, hard for me to see how this comes back. You know, it might settle there, but
just in the pass, like the passing efficiency being so
yeah
high, and their basically pass rate being so high, like that is usually a recipe for blowout.
Yeah,
because explosives just happen out of that, right? And
exactly,
21 becomes 28 really quickly.
Yeah, Friday Night Lights could be Friday Night Lights out for Virginia.
Might
at
be.
least. Yeah,
might be.
I think that's what's going to happen here.
RIP to our SMU tickets because Miami's win the ACC. Although Clemson looks good, but
barring some freak stuff happening, yeah, those are DOA for sure. But oh well, is what it is. Long shots to begin with. All right, Friday Night Lights. We move on to Saturday slate, baby. We got Oklahoma State going up against Kansas State. Full disclosure, we're on Oklahoma State plus 5.5 here. So the model likes Oklahoma State in this spot. This one was interesting to me to kind of digest and kind of break down the data. I want to get your take because neither team really has kind of stood out or is standing out to me on paper. Kansas State last week obviously getting throttled by BYU. That was kind of the whole game was like a fluke. A lot of weird shit happened in that game. And then Oklahoma State, going up against a backup in I forget the guy's name, but for Cam Rising against Utah, obviously a very stout defense. So I can understand their performance was whatever, not ideal. But what's your take on this and what the model or what the market's been doing on it? Because I'm having a hard read on this one, frankly.
Yeah, and I think it's still sitting around 5. Is that right?
Let's do a quick.
While you get that number, I'll break down some of the stats. So Kansas State here, offensive pass EPA is 81st in the nation, but 19th running the ball. Oklahoma State on defense is 50th against the pass and 65th against the rush. Oklahoma State on offense is 29th on the pass and 111th on the rush. And then Kansas State defensively is 91st on the pass and 29th against the rush. The biggest thing that jumps out at me for this data is both of these teams know who they are and they lean into it. So what I mean by that is Kansas State's 19th in rush EPA and they're 39th in run rate over expected. So they're running the ball because running is their strength. On the other side, though, Oklahoma State's actually strength this season is throwing the ball, 29th in pass EPA, and they're basically top 18 for pass rate over expected. So they're both basically saying this is who we are. We talked about it last week, Oklahoma State being a team that we think of Ollie Gordon and think of a really good rushing attack. They're just, like I said, 111th this season. They're just not getting it done on that side of the ball.
Not at all.
Really interesting thing. The one thing that kind of stood out to me is Oklahoma State is paying off their drives a little bit more. We're talking about a 5.2 points per echo for Oklahoma State, but only 4.4 points per echo given up by Kansas State. So it's going to be one of those things. To me, that's the bet right there. Are you going to pay this off? Are they going to pay off the drives? Because if not, things could get iffy. But that's the one thing I think that Oklahoma State has over Kansas State, if they can pay those, just basically score touchdowns on those drives.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And then to put a bow on the other point, so all the market makers are at 5. Circa's still hanging at 5, and then some of the retail 5 or a couple of 4.5s out there available still. So not a ton of movement yet, but yeah. I mean, I just it's been crazy. It's been crazy for me to see. To your point about the rushing attack for Oklahoma State, just really, not say fall off a cliff, but or maybe that is the appropriate analogy. Like
I think it is.
Yeah. So it's been.
I mean, Ollie Gordon was like preseason was like Heisman talk.
Oh yeah, you could get his Heisman odds weren't all that crazy, weren't all that long. So
I mean,
I don't even know if there anyone's hanging odds for him anymore.
I mean, not something crazy plus 50,000, but yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, we were not thinking this team would have this identity. Obviously, they had that crazy game against Oklahoma, or I'm sorry, Arkansas. It was interesting to see how they played against a Utah team without Cam Rising. A little bit interesting, but I don't know. This kind of, if you look at the data, does kind of scream like a shootout. It's hard to see how these teams are really going to stop each other. And so I think it comes down to basically how they're going to pay off these drives. And if Oklahoma State can just score one touchdown more, you're going to want the points in a shootout.
Yeah. The market is definitely agreeing with that sentiment. This opened at 51.5 and is now at 55.5. So market makes a lot of sense there. Okay. Just looking at our producers' comments. 5 everywhere. DK 4.5. Boo, DK. Or if you want to be a K-State backer. Yay, DK.
I guess so.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Models on. Go ahead.
I like this bet because I do think it's a shootout. And then with the shootout, high variance, but with the shootout, you kind of want the points. Now, I was just gonna say the overtime rules kind of suck, but I think it's the right side. Whether it wins or not, I think this is the better side to be on.
Fair enough. Yeah, this is one of the ones for me where you look at the output and you're like, I just can't see it. I don't know, but again, trust the process. Trust the data, quantify as much as you can, and roll with it. All right.
Yeah. But I wasn't last week. I couldn't envision Kansas State losing outright to BYU.
Sure.
I didn't get to watch that game. You said it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, there's just a lot of a lot of turnovers, a lot of fluke punt return for touchdowns. Stuff that's not really going to carry over week to week. Does that make sense? A lot of high variance stuff.
I see.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the next matchup here. We got a few more. Next up, Louisville going up against Notre Dame. Notre Dame, since their loss to Northern Illinois, has looked like Notre Dame looked prior to their loss to Northern Illinois. I think they seem to have rebound pretty well, in my opinion. We make the number 8 here, and Marco is at 5 currently. So ever so slight bit of value on Notre Dame, but not enough for us to take it for it to be a model prediction or play officially. Louisville, Seth, I'm going to get your take on them real quick too, because you break down their offensive numbers and they're impressive on paper, in my opinion. But
they are.
You pull the curtain back a little bit, and it's like it's kind of been against trash opponents.
Yeah.
So how do you juxtapose what they've done to date versus what they might be able to do against Notre Dame?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I kind of have the same question myself. So you're right. Louisville offensively 8th passing and 24th rushing offense in the nation. That's quite impressive.
Yeah.
On the Notre Dame side of the ball, offensively, we're looking at the 94th passing offense and the 7th rushing offense. The interesting thing here, and why I'm a little concerned for Louisville, and why Notre Dame I think is probably the right play here, is if you look at that Louisville pass rate, that's great, 8th in the nation, but they're going up against the second best passing defense in the nation in Notre Dame. And the problem is their Louisville's pass rate over expected is about 6.7% more than an average team. So they're needing to throw the ball to have these kind of wins that they're having. and I'm not quite certain they're going to be able to throw the ball against Notre Dame. And the problem is, yeah, okay, their rush is not bad either, 24th in the nation. But if you look at the run rate over expected defensively for Notre Dame, teams are just trying to run on them and can't. So I'm worried that what does Louisville do when they can't do the thing they want to do, which is throw the ball? They're forced to run, and Notre Dame's defense is going to kind of be able to lean into that. And that's where I think this can get a little bit of hairy. This, in a lot of ways, reminds me of week 1, Notre Dame, Texas A&M. I think it's going to be a very similar game here. Notre Dame might try to throw the ball a little bit, but they're going to grind you. They're going to try to just run the ball. 7th passing offense here for Notre Dame. Louisville 3rd overall rush defense here. So this is giving me a lot of Texas A&M Notre Dame vibes. And in that game, I went back and looked because Louisville played Georgia Tech last week, and that game was pretty close other than explosives. And where did those explosives come from? The passing game from Louisville. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to have those same explosives from a Notre Dame defense. Now, maybe, but this is going to be a grind game. And I don't know if Louisville can keep up over 4 quarters.
Yeah, that's I had a similar thought, and one, I haven't pulled the trigger on this yet, but I was eyeing the over under for this game, 48.5. The market has bought this down just a little bit, so I don't like it as much now, but I thought 48.5 was a kind of an attractive number based on those factors that you kind of just discussed. And I want to go back to a couple of things here. So if you're staring at this chart and you're looking at the various metrics and numbers here, you see in many spots Louisville kind of outranks or kind of outclasses Notre Dame in a lot of these offensive metrics that we track. We've talked about it in the past, but maybe someone who's watching this for the first time may not have seen those videos or may not understand fully. So when we look at offensive weighted EPA per play there, right after the expected value column on our chart on the table here, Seth, can you break down just real quickly what that means basically to have a weighted EPA per play and how we can kind of contextualize Notre Dame being half as good as Louisville, basically?
Yeah. So for a weighted EPA, what we're looking at are plays that a team is making on a per play basis that are correlated with more winning and covering. So basically you want to look at, one of the ones I know off the top of my brain is if you're running the ball successfully on neutral downs, which is basically second down, if you're having a successful rushing play, those are slightly upweighted. Things like penalties are downweighted. So when we look at a per play basis and we up and down weight certain plays, this is how we get a weighted EPA. And again, it's more correlated with covering and winning. Basically, more important plays are weighted more importantly.
Yep. Very good.
But I did want to point out we did bet this at open because we got it at 4.5 minus 105. So we do have.
Oh yeah, you're right. I totally missed that. Yeah, thank you for the correction.
Yeah. Is sitting nice right now. I think this is somewhere at 6. I don't know if this will get to the full touchdown. I think we make it 8. So we're kind of right around that touchdown number. I think that's probably the truth to me is a touchdown. I mean, people come in our lives and ask this question all the time on TikTok. Why is Notre Dame so high? Notre Dame so high? I don't think people understand if we can bring up the talent score. Notre Dame, I don't think people understand how well Notre Dame recruits year in and year out. We're looking at like a top 5 recruiting overall roster of 4 and 5 star recruits. So this is a stacked roster of just dudes. Yeah. So from the talent standpoint, Notre Dame no doubt has, all the 4 and 5 star talent. Now, that isn't to say Louisville can't beat them. When we look at that, that's important that these are on the same par as your, Ohio State's, Alabama's, Georgia's. They have the same amount of 4 and 5 star recruits.
Yeah, and to your point about the market, so we did get a 4.5, and most of the market is at a 6 or 6.5 currently. So we're getting some good CLV on this one for sure. So, okay. I don't want to say those were the teasers or the previews, but there are a couple. The juggernaut matchup of the weekend, baby. I've been looking forward to this one for weeks, frankly, since the season kicked off. Georgia and Alabama. Man. Oh my God, I can feel it in my bones now. Super excited just to as a fan of the game, just to tune into this one. I think it's going to be a fantastic matchup. I don't know if you want to. We might tease, what maybe you're on. Maybe you hold that off until later, Seth. So maybe don't give that away just quite yet here. But
sure.
So we at face value, our model's not showing any value on either side of this. We make the number one. market opened at about a 1.5, and depending on where you look, there's been some. I'll just call it interesting movement. It's kind of bobbed and weaved, seesawed a little bit. There's some 2.5s and some 2s out there in the market now. So would be shocked, absolutely floored if it makes it to makes it through a 3. I don't think it will. I think it has no chance. But
No.
I want to, so similar to what I said about in the OK State Kansas State discussion, is that when I was thinking of these two teams and breaking down their data, on a per play basis, neither of these teams really stood out from an offensive perspective to me. I thought they were going to be ranked higher than they actually are or have been to date. So my thought or my angle on this one, from a betting perspective, if we're not, using the model to bet it, is how hard are points going to be to come by in this one? And is there a play? Is there an angle we could look at about maybe, taking an under? Because that's, to me, I'm thinking that might be the play for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting take. I don't disagree with it. These teams are good. Let's just start kind of going through them. So when we look at Georgia's team and where they are offensively, we're talking about the 29th overall pass EPA team, but the 60th rush EPA team. So they have a lot to be desired rushing the ball. Alabama, on the other hand, is even more interesting to me. 10th passing EPA team, 18th rush EPA team. Now, when you're talking about the defensive side of the ball, these teams are really good. Alabama, we're talking about the 12th pass defense and the 22nd rush. Georgia, we're talking about the 5th pass defense and the 37th rushing defense. So, I mean, these teams are good. The thing that I'm concerned about here is with Georgia, and I'll tell you why. Georgia right now, pass offense 27th. We talked about it. Alabama's 12th against the pass. I also went back and looked. We get a lot of we've talked a little bit about it on here. Who have these teams played? Georgia's played a Kentucky team in the SEC. I don't think Alabama's played an SEC team. They ended up playing Wisconsin, a Big Ten team. But if we actually look at the adjusted EPA per play on the offense, Alabama's the 8th overall offense and Georgia's 17th. So again, another data point that Georgia falls a little bit behind Alabama. But where I'm concerned here is Georgia throwing the ball. We talked about Alabama 12th against the pass, Georgia's the 27th passing offense, but Georgia is the 60th rushing offense. Alabama is the 22nd rushing defense. Alabama can do both passing and throwing, and right now their run rate over expected is 34th in the nation. They're running the ball higher than an average team, but yet they're 10th in the nation throwing the ball. So if you shut the run game down, aren't they just going to kill you through the air? And if you don't shut the rushing game down, are they just going to be throwing the ball? So that's where I'm a little concerned here. What is Georgia's game plan? Because defensively, I agree with you. Both of these teams are good, and they're good, against the pass, against the rush.
Yep.
But for the game plan here, I feel like Alabama has a lot more optionality to figure out what is going to work in this game, or at least have some variability in their game plan, where I feel like Georgia's either got to try to make this game work through the air or they're fucked.
Yeah. And further to that point too, I think you said it, I think almost perfectly. Like, both of these teams are going to have to try to figure out what's going to work because of how good the other team is defensively. And I think one thing that I'm thinking about too, and if you're a top-down bettor, there's value screaming all over this. DraftKings has a first half total of 24.5. Rest of the market's at 23.5. So if you want to think about, to your point, Seth, what the game plan is for both of these teams, I'm less convinced that either one of them will come out the gate swinging, so to speak. This is probably going to be more of a chess match and more of like, hey, all right, tit for tat, throw a punch, rope a dope, let's see what's going to work type of thing. And not probably, but I could see it being a situation where you see a second half, maybe quote unquote offensive explosion, if you will, from either side. But first half, I don't know. I really like that under 24.5. So that also might be something.
I don't think it's crazy. I agree with you in the game plan. I mean, we've seen a lot of that from these two teams, and they've played a lot. They've played each other a lot, especially in the last couple of years. I mean, it's hard to see a blowout here. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm just concerned on what Georgia's game plan is if they cannot throw the ball. The one thing here is, I was really shocked to see that the adjusted EPA was in favor of Alabama, because Georgia's played Clemson, and then they've had to play the SEC team at Kentucky, and they didn't have a great time there. But they've already kind of got those, I would say, jitters out, like the classic Georgia game every year where they barely eke out a road SEC win. But I mean, that's not a slight on Georgia. The SEC is tough to win week in and week out, especially on the road. So I wonder if that helps here, where they're not going to get down. They're not going to get, concerned if it's 3 and out and punt, 3 and out and punt, and like the game is still closed. They're not going to freak out because they've kind of already been through this. The first half, to your point, in that Clemson game was very much like this. They didn't pull away until that second half. So I think you're spot on with the first half under. I could definitely see that. I have a play in this game later we're going to talk about. I think there is value in this game personally.
Yeah. Let us know what you guys think in the comments, though. Potentially the game of the year, potentially. So let us know in the comments
until they maybe play again in the SEC championship game.
Okay, maybe fair. Potential part 1 of game of the year, series of the year, maybe. But let us know in the comments what you think. Who takes round 1 between Bama and Georgia? It should be a massive one. While you're making the comments, please don't also forget to hit the like button on the video. If you're not already, please subscribe to the channel. Helps us out tremendously. Again, we're here every week doing these matchups and breakdowns for you guys. So hopefully you find value in them as well.
Yeah, and this is a house divided for me. So my wife did her residency at the University of Georgia. I ended up actually living in Athens for about a year. And this weekend, serendipitously, my in-laws who live in Alabama are coming to visit. So we have a rivalry kind of in the house that's going to be a brewing. So we'll see. Hopefully everybody makes it.
They're pretty thoroughbred Georgia fans.
My father-in-law was in the Army. He has a American flag, and right under that an Alabama flag.
Oh, they're Bama fans.
Yeah, they live in Alabama.
Okay, sorry, I misheard you.
No. Yeah, my wife, she went to the University.
No, you said it right. I just jumped in my head.
Yeah. No, so they're rolling tide.
Let's go, baby. That should be fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right, we got another matchup though. We're not done. It's a big slate this week. A lot of big matchups coming up here. So next one up, we got Illinois going up against Penn State. This one's interesting. This opened at 16 at Circa, is now at 18.5. Really, I know we have 17.5 up there. This was a little market's even moved since we made this. So market's really buying Penn State, and I can't say I disagree. I'm not so sure that the markets, we're going to look back, when this week's over and be like, oh yeah, the market got this wrong. I'm not. This doesn't scream. This is a case for that. One thing that jumps off the page, for the metrics that we track here again is, offensively speaking for Penn State, their echo rate over expected was I didn't realize it was that impressive. I mean, Illinois, I guess I don't want to poo-poo on Illinois. They're still almost 20% better than an average team here.
Yeah.
But I guess I was just more shocked to see Penn State kind of given the eye test of last year and kind of some early games this year in spots rather. And then also like the run rate over expected and early down success rate. It's not, I don't know if you have those, Seth, in terms of the rankings there, but I thought the run rate over expected was interesting too, because how are they generating the echo, and what's their points per echo? It will be one thing that I'm curious about too, because
Penn State's points per echo is 5.6, which is 17th in the nation.
17th, interesting. Yeah, okay. So when they get down to the opponent's 40 or better, they're effectively scoring a touchdown almost every time.
Yeah. 17. I mean 5.6. So I mean, there are very few where they didn't score a touchdown.
Yeah. So I guess what's your analysis on this one? Because from a modeling perspective, we're not quite on either side on this one, but
yeah. I mean, I got one crazy stat. I think this is to me, this is like, oh shoot, I got to point this out. This is the best use case I've seen in a long time between why you need to look at data and why, even if you're a fan and you keep up on teams, why the teams can change rapidly from year to year, and who you think a team is completely different who they are, even if they're winning. And the biggest data point I have to prove this, Penn State is #1 in pass EPA. When you think of a pass EPA, you're not thinking Penn State. You're thinking Ohio State, right? You're thinking of a very different Big Ten team. You're thinking Oregon. Yeah, and to your point, they're killing it throwing the ball. They're #1 pass EPA, 44th running the ball. Illinois is the 42nd pass defense and the 51st pass defense. So, I mean, this is where Penn State can definitely dominate the game. It's through the air, and I don't see how this is going to necessarily, how the Illinois defense is going to stop them. Now, that being said, Illinois themselves, you pointed it out, has a run rate over expected that's quite high, or an echo rate over expected that's quite high. This is the 11th pass efficient team here in the nation. So 2 teams that can slang the hell out of the ball. I don't know here that I'm calling a shootout because, again, we've talked about Penn State. They definitely have some strength on the side of the ball. But to your point, when you called out the echo rate, 5.6 points per echo for Penn State, but Illinois defensively, they're only giving up 3.5 points per echo. So teams that are getting there are only getting paid off with field goals. So that's going to be a key here. If you want to be a Penn State backer, you're wanting to see Penn State. Part of what you're seeing when we make this number 18 is assuming Penn State is going to pay off drives, something they did not do when they played Bowling Green. So be cautious here if you're a Penn State backer. If you want to be, if you're on the Illinois train, choo-choo, I guess. But that's to me the game. The other thing here, I think it's complete fugazi. It's not real, but I think it's worth asking out loud. Is this a letdown spot for Illinois? They've had a lot of hype. I think they've had 2 Friday Night Light games. A big one last week. They went and they won overtime. It was a great game. Now, is this kind of where you lose some steam?
Interesting. Yeah. And I look back real quick because to your point about Illinois' points per echo, it's not like they played a bunch of second class sits. I mean, Nebraska, much improved from last year, not like top 10, but a solid offense in Nebraska and Kansas as well.
Yeah.
Gave up only 17 to Kansas and 24 to Nebraska. So yeah, that's interesting. But probably to that point, that's crazy that they're number one, that Penn State's number one.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is one of the biggest data points I've seen in a long time where you're thinking, who's Penn State? Really good defensively. They're getting it done offensively, maybe on the ground. Like, no, this is like an air raid offense. Like, they're slanging it, they're killing it, doing it that way. And they're not going to stop here. But that's important to understand, how teams are winning, and Penn State's winning very differently than we've kind of seen this team win.
Yeah, that's crazy. That should be, I don't know if it'll be a good game, but I'm intrigued at the very least. I'm a little more intrigued than I was.
I mean, Illinois definitely has the pieces to stop them. It's just, the thing that I thought is really interesting about Illinois, they have they almost literally have a run rate over expected of 0. Like, they're literally just the most balanced team of throwing and rushing. And the interesting thing is that we know how well they can throw the ball and how clutch their quarterback came in last week against Nebraska. Like, is that enough of a game plan to cover at minimum? And I think it could be. It's not going to be the sexy side here, but look, we don't show a value kind of either way. So in our opinion, you're betting into a market with no vig, or that's a vig market. Like, I think you got to take Illinois here rather than just be like, oh yeah, the favorite covers, no problem. Because I think Illinois can do enough. Like, if they can throw the ball, you're going to at least maybe get an explosive touchdown out of that backdoor if this thing gets out of hand. So that's the way I would think to bet it, but it's hard for me to give any advice if I'm not actually touching this myself.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, not all the matchups, or not all the matchups for the weekend. Obviously, there's a couple of other good ones, but yeah, those were. It's going to be this jam-packed weekend. I didn't even realize it until we were kind of talking about which games we were going to break down. So let's zoom out though for a second. Talked about some good marquee matchups, hopefully some good angles and data for you guys. But let's talk about the college football landscape now. All right. In terms of a power rating standpoint, correct me if I'm wrong, there hasn't been much change as far as like a top 5 from our standpoint, kind of how we make the numbers.
Yeah, and I can't remember beyond the top 2, which is Ohio State, and then it's Texas, and then I think Miami's moved to 3rd, if I'm not mistaken. So that's kind of a big change. And then you can see that like hodgepodge of teams all right there that are basically kind of in there.
Okay.
But again, that Tennessee team, like I was telling everybody, like, do you disagree? They won that game defensively to me. I understand they made plays, but like,
agree.
That team is built to beat Alabama and Georgia. It's built to do the SEC thing, not to do what happened 2 years ago where you had Hendon Hooker. Yeah. He can throw the ball, but they can't stop anybody.
Yeah, I was actually perplexed on what they were trying to accomplish offensively speaking. So it just seemed some of it didn't make sense in real time. I remember thinking that, but yeah, every time defensively, I was like, they are legit in every sense
Yeah.
of in every sense
Yeah.
of the word. So I do got to ask you again though. Ole Miss.
Did they cover last week? I didn't even.
Does it matter? Does it matter? Are you?
It does to me. If you good wins, good or what is it? Good wins win.
Good teams. Good
great
teams win.
cover. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I don't know. I got to look this up. So Ole Miss. I don't even know who they play. No, they didn't play Bowling Green.
If you're not following along, Seth has been basically a lot lower on.
I just don't believe it. I just don't believe they have played nobody. They've played nobody. They beat. They played Furman and won 76 this year. I didn't really catch that. 52-13 Georgia Southern.
Yep.
I think that is a cover because I think it was like 30 something points.
Yeah. Okay.
They haven't played anybody in the SEC yet.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I will concede that you are certainly right there, but until proven otherwise, I don't know.
Week, right? They're going to play Kentucky.
They play Kentucky this week, which obviously they just gave Georgia a nice little run for their money last week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but yeah, when you, I mean, does anything pop off the page for you when you're kind of juxtaposing, how teams have performed 4 weeks through the season, like are any teams, in your mind, vastly over or underperforming expectations?
Yeah, I mean, we discussed it from a betting side as a syndicate side. Like Kent State is like just beyond. You can't bet them. Like you're not betting what you think you're betting, so to speak. So Kent State,
they actually
is another team.
Their quarterback just got hurt, or they benched him. I don't know. Some shit happened. Like I don't even know who they're starting now at quarterback, but it's bad.
No, it's a no bet. I implore anybody. I beg you, please do not bet on Kent State. It's not good. I think I had that sneaking suspicion. The data were screaming that stuff we were talking about Tennessee.
Yeah,
so it was really interesting to see it come into fruition. Playing an SEC team again, like this is not your Tennessee teams of old. This team is built to beat Alabama and Georgia. Like it's built differently. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye out on. Like for instance, like Ole Miss is not built like that, in my opinion. And so when they play the Georgias and Alabama,
that's fair.
I think they'll be able to win. I think Tennessee really could win the SEC. Penn State, we had talked about them, but they are kind of clicking. And to be honest, although Oregon kind of came out of their, they had a coming out party last weekend. To me, is Penn State, it may be the second best and maybe the first best team in the Big Ten. We've seen right now in our power rating, Ohio State's the number one defense, but they've literally played some of the worst competition. So yeah, they're holding them. Like their points per echo is like, basically it's incredible. Their numbers look inflated, but they haven't really played a really great offense. Now, here we go again. They're playing Michigan State this week. Not a good offense. Yep. I'm curious to see, though, will they be able to move the ball on Michigan State, who's actually played pretty well defensively. That'll be the kind of the first big data point we're going to get. And I think if we get a data point that's like, oh, shoot, Ohio State doesn't really got it like that. Like Penn State might be the favorite to win the Big Ten. You're probably not going to see that in the betting market, but the numbers are going to keep getting, cut in half. I think it was like plus 2,200.
I'm going to see. Let me see. I forget if it was last week's episode or 2 weeks ago when we were having this discussion about Penn State. And I'm going to make sure I get this right. But so I was intrigued at the very least. So I had a couple of free bets. So I sprinkled some free bets on Penn State to win the national championship, not to win the Big Ten. So you get them at plus 2,000, and this was this was 9 days ago that I got it.
I think it's a great bet. It's a great bet. Also to follow up, Ole Miss, Kentucky, we make the number minus 17. Ole Miss, and I think the market was 17.5. So we're pretty much right on market. But this to me is the first big test Ole Miss is going to get, and I'd love to see them fail this test. Hotty toddy.
All right. Well, speaking of making the numbers, let's go into a new little portion of the episodes here that we kind of came up with this idea literally just a few days ago. So haven't done it today, but wanted to start doing it just to add a little fun, add a little spice to it all. Yeah. Calling it off the numbers. Okay. And basically all we're doing is the three of us, two of us in this case, kind of going off script, so to speak, kind of each picking a game or a market, a bet, basically, that we each like individually. We're just going to talk shit and see who maybe comes out on top dog at the end of the season. So as the inaugural off the numbers segment here, let's talk about some value that we see individually. So tease it ever just so slightly early, but let's kick it. I want to lead off with you, Seth, on what is your off the numbers pick for this week?
Off the numbers pick this week is maybe you picked it up when I was breaking it down, is Alabama roll tide here. Money line plus 110 is best in the market. I think that's over at DraftKings. Look, I mean, I said it before. The reality for me is when I break down these numbers, let's start with a couple places. You know, the way I want to bet these for me personally, right, is the combination of looking at the numbers, looking at the model, and then some intuition, right?
Yep.
And we don't usually do that, but this is kind of what this segment is what are things that we can try to use our intuition and the model or other data to try to make better bets. And we make the raw number here a pick 'em, basically, you know, exactly 0. And so there's already a little bit of value on Alabama. And we talked about that angle for Georgia's pass efficiency. Basically, this to me is the only way they're going to be able to win this game. I don't think they're going to be able to keep up with Alabama's offense. And because of that, I just see them beating Georgia, at home. There's a lot going in Georgia's direction. Now, that being said, obviously Kirby's been he's been thinking about this game for damn near about a year. So I don't think this is going to be a blowout, but I think it's going to be a good game. And I can see Alabama winning at home by a field goal.
Okay. All right. Alabama money line for Seth. Shut up. All right. My off the numbers pick this week is BYU plus 3.5. A couple of things went into this one. When I was looking at the market on Monday or so, this number, like from a just purely top-down perspective, this kind of jumped out at me. We make the number 2, I believe, and most of the market was at a 3 at that point.
All right.
There was one book who was hanging a very lazy 3.5. So I was like, okay,
gotta snipe it.
I wonder if this is going to move. It was a rec book who was at a 3.5 to be clear, transparent. So I wasn't, trying to pull an okey doke or something, but I loved it then. I only kind of like it now. The market has slightly disagreed with me. Most of the 3.5s now in the market, but we make the number 2. So technically speaking, Baylor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Baylor's not. They've shit the bed last week, obviously.
So BYU plus 3.5 against Baylor. So one of the other elements that I was thinking of here is to the discussion earlier about how quickly teams can change on a week to week or season to season basis. I'm wondering, and I'm not so sure that the market has caught up to BYU yet and their performance and what they're doing, basically. Mentioned, talked about the K-State game a little bit last week. There was a lot of fluke stuff that happened in there. A lot of mistakes by Kansas State. But I think an average team doesn't capitalize on all those mistakes. BYU capitalized on every single one of those mistakes. Okay. Turn turnovers into touchdowns. Okay. So they worked with a lot of short fields, but I thought it was an impressive kind of it was something I took away from that game. I'm like, all right, if Baylor is not necessarily a slouch per se, they've shit the bed, to your point, on like some late game moments and whatnot. But yeah, I think I'm not so sure the market has adjusted yet to who BYU is this year. So yeah, that's what. Fair. And then I just saw a fun little stat that I want to sprinkle in here too. Okay. Since we talk about this all the time and it's so meaningful. BYU 4-0 ATS.
Perfect.
But the one extra layer to this onion is that they have the second highest cover margin next to Tennessee of 18.3 points. So they're not only covering, they are demolishing the spread. So they kind of played into my thinking or rationale about the market hasn't quite caught up to who BYU is this year. So
I mean, they won outright against SMU. I think that was like a 10-point, 12-point spread, something like that.
Yeah. So only Tennessee has been better and outperforming sort of the market consensus at close. So BYU plus 3.5.
Yeah, and Baylor's kind of been a team that likes to turn it over. So maybe get more of that.
Yes. So that's mine. And then Seth isn't here, or Steve isn't here to sort of defend himself on this one, but he is rolling with SMU and Florida State under 47.5 points.
Yep, 47.5.
Oh, he got okay. Yeah, I don't know if he got 47.
I mean, to be honest, you can get 48s in the market. So the market doesn't agree
Ooh,
with Steve here.
let's go.
48.5 is the best number I see. 48.5.
Okay.
At BetMGM -110 would be the best. So
All right.
we'll see.
We'll hold him to it. We'll see what he actually got next week or when we talk to him. And,
I'm
that's
hoping
what
for
that's
him. He
what
hasn't
we'll hold
bet
him
it
to.
yet, so you can get a 48.5.
All right.
Yeah, it looks like this jumps. This just kind of jumped on him. Is 47.5, 47, and then this has got as high as 49 at circa. So it's kind of been all over the place. But
Yeah. Okay.
I think I see his logic. I can't speak for him, but I think I would imagine what he's honing in on, right? Two teams that have underperformed just vastly. I mean, these are teams that,
Agreed.
These are just vastly underperforming teams.
Yep. Yeah. It's not a bad angle if you want to take it into the over under market. So, all right, that'll do it for that. Let's move on to our regularly scheduled programming. We got model predictions for week 5. And we sound like a broken record every week. We volume,
but this is
volume,
definitely
baby.
the most volume. This is the most I've ever bet in a weekend for sure.
Shout out. Okay. So week 5 model predictions, Seth. Want to do the honors?
All right. Starting off Thursday night, we're on Temple +13. Then headed into the Friday night cap, Washington +2.5. Then headed into the Saturday slate, Old Dominion +10, Notre Dame -4.5, -105. Kansas University -1.5, Fresno State +4.5. Sorry, producer Eric. Washington State +7, Oklahoma -2.5 or 2.5, Tulsa +7.5, Memphis -24.5, Stanford +22, Oklahoma State +5.5, Western Kentucky +11.5, New Mexico State +7, Oregon -23.5, and Minnesota +11.5.
Yeah, keep track of all that. Why don't you? Yeah,
some volume and some gross ones, some sexy ones. We got some favorites in there. Notre Dame, Kansas. I love this Washington State bet. I'm going to say that, and we're probably going to get smoked. But this Washington State offense is the real deal, and they're fighting the good fight for the Pac-12 or the Pac-2, I guess.
Yeah, I guess shout out represent that. Yeah, I'll agree with you there. And this one, what's the number we got, Seth?
For
Washington State again?
Washington State +7 is the number.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I know you like it, but the market doesn't necessarily agree with us yet on this one. So,
what's it at? 7, 8, 8.
You can get 7.5. So you can get a couple of eights, out there as well.
We'll see where it lands. We're on Oregon 23, so another favorite. They haven't looked sexy, but we'll see. This is kind of an old Pac-12 matchup now as a Big Ten matchup. So what are we going to see there? Really curious to see Oklahoma. They did come out and say they're going to start the freshman. We felt comfortable betting this just because there's so much going on at Auburn. It's kind of turning into a dumpster fire pretty quick. They have their own issues with quarterback and seemingly head coach. So I'm really curious to see what that game's going to be like, because obviously they just straight up pulled their quarterback in that Oklahoma game, right? I mean, there was an injury. They just
they said you weren't doing it. You weren't cutting it.
So that's pretty ruthless. That's their first SEC game. That's how serious they're taking it. So I can't imagine what that guy's going to do, because he was able to have a little bit of success. And what are they going to be able to do against an Auburn team that's basically stopped no one? And this freshman thing gets a whole week to prepare. I do like what the model's picking up there. That's one of my favorites. So yeah, a lot of volume. It is what it is. And of course, I got the by myself. I'm on the Roll Tide, baby.
And Roll Tide, that's right. Yeah, let us know what you guys think though. A lot of volume. Do you have a favorite bet from the card this week? Are you fading? Are you going opposite direction of the model this week? What are you doing, if anything? Let us know in the comments. And again, don't forget to hit the like button. Please subscribe to the channel as well. It does us a great amount of I don't even know the right word, but just do it, damn it. Okay.
Yeah. It helps us.
All right. It does help us. All right. Shout out, Seth. Good to be with you again, man. That'll do it for us this week. Roll Tide, I guess, man.
Yeah, Roll Tide. Good luck, everybody. Whatever BYU says.
Yeah, we'll see you next week. Take it easy.
Bye.